Good evening. I would like to welcome Letroy Woods. He's an experiential coach. And what we're here to do tonight is to bring awareness to International Men's Day, bring awareness to the issues that men face and what areas that we should go into that we really need to do some more work in. We need to have some more awareness around. And the topic that we chose to speak to this evening has to do with moving through life with the pressure. And so that's what we're going to be speaking to tonight. And all of this is in preparation for an event that will be happening on November 19th, 2022 for International Men's Day. And so, with that, I'd like to have Letroy introduce our subject, and we're going to have a conversation about what it means to move through life with the pressure.
Well, thank you, Linda. And I extend my gratitude to you and this endeavor with just opening up this conversation about men, what's inside of us, but just have the conversation in general. And so the pressure is something that's actually been very close to my own heart because it's really helped save my life because it stopped me from running away from the very thing that could save my life, and that's myself. And so I never realized what the pressure was when you feel like the grips of life is squeezing you, what that actually is and the opportunity that's inside of it.
I can't agree with you more on this. Um, Really, when we have life's pressures, like you said, getting a grip on us, and we're trying to figure out how do we move through this difficult time, this difficult season. And, you know, different people have different ways that they deal with these things, and each person's experience is not the same. Their approach is not the same. And even when you're being a support to someone that's going through something difficult, it's like, how do you approach it with another person in a way that honors what they're going through without making it about yourself, without saying that their situation is more or less than what you're going through? All of these things come to the surface when you're either are in the space where something is difficult for yourself, or you're with or surrounded by someone that's going through something difficult. What would your advice be in this subject?
I think the first thing always is just to be aware. Without the awareness, we don't know what we don't know. We can't not notice the program that's always running. So I think the first part is just being aware. And second, like what we're doing right now, this conversation, right? And understanding whose conversation you're actually hearing, right? Most of the time, we're hearing that voice inside of us and we don't realize what's happening behind the scenes. And this type of communication requires talking and listening. Human beings were great at a lot of things. We've created a lot of things over time. But the one thing I feel that we're not very good at still is this thing called communication, where one person talks and another person listens. But however, it is to listen to their words that are coming out of their mouth instead of the voice that's inside of your head.
Yes, a lot of times we're thinking about how can we add to the conversation. And when we're doing that, you're right, we're not actively listening. We're not really taking in the experience. And when we do that, we are not going to make that communication connection in quite the same way.
I agree 100%. And this takes courage, Linda, I believe. I didn't get shown how to be expressive as a male up until 5 years ago. And this is something I had to choose. Choice, right? Is the reason human beings are the only species on the planet that have choice. I had to choose to have the courage to show up and face myself, right? My life is the way it is right now because I'm choosing it. Go back to the pressure. Most of the magic in our lives, as you know, if you've progressed at any area of your life, whether it's in your finances, your relationships, your personal endeavors, whatever it may be, it is when the opportunity that shows up and is usually come in the form of pressure, adversity, failure, problems, because it's another level of awareness when we get so uncomfortable in these situations, right, that we don't want this feeling to persist, that we're now aware enough that I don't want this thing anymore. So I'm willing to now finally move my feet and make a decision, right? Decision part of it is to cut away all other options other than that you will love for yourself. So I think these type of conversations is the ground way of breaking those barriers, so that we can have conversations that create win-win situations.
You're right. It does take a lot of courage. And a lot of times we're trying to run away from something rather than to face something. And a lot of times we don't always reach out to have that communication because, again, we don't want to be seen as not being strong, that we can't handle it. And really, when we do that, we're not like opening up in a way where we could get that support. And it's really hard to move through some things without some level of support, whether it's changing your environment or finding a network where you can get that support. And would you say that in your journey that there was a pivotal moment that occurred for you that changed your ability to be able to have that courage? Was there something that you could share with us that make, because you said as a man it made it harder to come forward with that courage and to have that voice?
There was one pivotal moment, and I'm gonna be transparent because this is the only way to really have a real conversation is through transparency and vulnerability. As before we started our call today, and I was telling you, that I went to the state capitol building today to speak in front of the House of Senate to give this expression that we're talking about that's inside of all of us. Up until 5 years ago, I didn't have the courage to pull that out of me. And this started with an event called suicide for me 5 years ago. And this was actually an opportunity for me to make a decision to commit to myself. And I had never done that as an adult. As an adult male, I've never done that either. It was always commit to the family, commit to the job, commit to the finances, commit to the stuff, the trips, the house, the accolades, the vanity. And I was always putting myself second. Now here I am, and it happened in this very room. I'm laying in my bed, and here I am seeing myself from the inside, and I'm being faced with this opportunity, this question: Do you want to live or do you want to die? And it was the first moment where I actually made a commitment to myself, and that's when I felt something took place inside of me that has changed me forever. I felt this almost switch turn on inside of me, and it was the first day that I actually took ownership of the life that I was living. My life was the way it was because I was choosing it. And what was great about that is in that awareness, now I can choose something else. So my dialogue began to change about myself, which now began to change how I spoke in front of my family, coworkers, friends, began to show up for myself, began to choose myself first every day. And then I realized that's the answer I was looking for my whole adult life and my childhood. It was myself I was looking for the entire time. It was something that I couldn't find because I thought it was out there, and this was the obstacle the whole time, and this is what changed the conversation for us to be talking today.
Thank you so much for sharing that vulnerability with me. I would say that finding yourself and putting you first, it seems like really logical thing to do, but a lot of us don't do it. And you're right, it can take a whole lifetime to do that because putting yourself first means putting yourself above others. And a lot of us tend to want to help others, but we can't begin to help others until we help ourselves. We have to demonstrate what self love means. We have to show people that it's not selfish to put yourself first, to put yourself into places, experiences, be surrounded with people that allow you to be who you are authentically, to be healthy. And some areas where I might actually speak with people about choices. One that comes up quite a bit is when people find themselves in toxic environments, or they find themselves in a place where they will experience mental health adversity. And this topic of putting yourself first, I was really trying to help someone close to me to find herself, to find that in her. And we didn't get to finish that. So um, she felt like she had no choices, that she was never enough, when honestly, she was a ray of sunshine. She meant a lot to a lot of us. And I wanted her to make the choice that you spoke about when you had a choice. Do I want to live or do I want to die? She chose something differently.
You know,
And I had to sit with that.
I think often, Linda, this isn't a tangible or intangible thing sometimes, but living and dying sometimes we're
Mm-hmm,
just going through the motions that mediocrity is not acceptable. At least it isn't. And that's not how I roll anymore with myself. Mediocrity is I know what's coursing through my veins, which is greatness,
mm-hmm,
right? And so there is nothing less than I'm gonna choose. Then if something in my life isn't the way I want it to be, it's because I'm choosing it to be. So now I have to swallow that tough pill and look at myself
mm-hmm,
in the mirror, right? That you're choosing this, Troy. Don't put it on somebody else. Don't put it on the economy. Don't put it on your job. Don't put it on your family. Like that would be disservice to you and to them. Now here's that pressure again, right? And I think that pressure helps us to see ourselves.
mm-hmm,
That in this situation that's so uncomfortable, I still have a choice. I still have a choice. I can stay right here where I'm at, where I don't want to be, or because this pressure is so intense, I can move my feet over here in this other path, which would give me a different reality.
absolutely. The way that we talk to ourselves, the way we say there's no other way. Well, there's always another way. We have to have that compassionate patience with ourselves, because sometimes finding that other way, that other choice, we have to move through the process, and it doesn't always change as quickly as we'd like. Sometimes we go through things in life where we think we want one thing and it doesn't turn out that way. And then we think about all of the things of why we're losing, we're missing out, and we're thinking, oh gosh, why did I make that choice? And when we need to have a lot more compassion for ourselves, to know that wherever we are, whatever we're given, we can choose. We can ask for help. We can find support. We can fall into who we are. And each person's journey is different. I'm going to say that much. Each person's journey is different, and we're all going to deal with things differently. But for me, and for you, and for anyone that's listening, really just going inward and getting in touch with yourself, knowing you have choices, and being okay to, face the tough stuff. Because when you face the tough stuff, then you start to build your resiliency muscle. You take some different actions, make some different choices. And I would say that for the most part, people end up in a good spot when they can do that. But until you find the courage and take the steps to do that, it can be really hard. And that's okay. So, because that's where we're trying to get at here, is that, well, it might be really hard. It might be really painful. You will get through it. And there's people in the world, there's people in life that can help us do that. So it's about asking for that support to help us through those things. I know I've had to ask people for support to get through things. And it always comes back to, what do I need to do in here? And once I do that and step into my faith, try some different things, most of the time, I would say that I would still experience that difficult moment again, which sounds counterintuitive, but I would. And the moment came for me when someone that I worked with as a coach said, look at how you are expanding. Look at where you are. if you didn't go through that difficult experience, you wouldn't be doing half of the things that you're doing. I thought, yeah, that's right. I made a choice to do things differently. I made a choice to move forward and not stay in limiting beliefs.
Hmm. You know, when you said faith, Linda, this is for me, so I could give perspective from how it was being shown to me. And I believe there's some very universal truths, and there's some laws out there that we cannot know what are God's laws of how things actually work here on this planet with us. But faith, I believe, is an inside thing, not an outside thing, because everything starts inside first. And I remember hearing Robert Downey Jr. When he went to prison for heroin, and he was talking about, the process it took for him to become Iron Man, and this was a part of the process, the pressure, right? And I don't think this was his quote, but when he said "faster alone, further together," right? We could get
Mm-hmm.
far in our lives by ourselves, but to get further, we need one another. We can't do this by ourselves. And that pressure, right? The pressure is the least actually when you're right in the middle of the storm. That's when the storm is actually the calmest, is when you're moving towards it instead of running away from it. Right. And I've learned that in my own life, and I've learned to create my own pressure because I know there's a prize on the other side. Is this becoming phase for me? I want to find out what I'm capable of. I intend, in fact, to find out what's inside of me, this potential that is coursing through my veins. That way I can bring more service and more value to people. The only way to bring more value is to understand what's inside of me. And that pressure helps me to break through those different layers of myself.
Thank you for sharing that quote because it's very powerful when you think about going together. You're not alone. And what else can I say? Because lots of things are going through my mind, and I was thinking about where I wanted to come in on this. And yes, knowing that you can get to the other side, having the faith in not knowing, not seeing. That's where it is. I think that's where I wanted to go because a lot of things you don't know what's going to happen outside of yourself. You don't know the order of events or the things that'll be interconnected in timing. But when you look internally about how you're going to move through and what steps you're going to take, then it brings a sense of peace because you can't control things outside of yourself, but you can control your thoughts, you can control your energy, you can control the words that you use, all of those things. That's all about self. But when you're looking to outside of yourself, that's when the uncertainty is and the not knowing. And really, when you can fall into not worrying about all of that, it's so much easier. I always talk about feeling lighter. The moment you go internal and you realize that you're in control, you feel lighter. The burdens are gone. You can breathe easier, you can move easier, and just everything all of a sudden becomes this uh, being where everything's effortless. Now, I'm not saying that we don't work hard in life towards things, but it really doesn't feel like it's an internal battle or a fight that you're having to prove something to anyone or anybody. You know who you are, you know what you want, you know what you're capable of, and you have faith that you'll do all the things that you need to be doing, even when the pressures are there, even when things feel really hard. You just know you can do it. And you're not afraid to invite people with you as you go through that journey.
Can I ask you a question, Linda? Would that be okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Uh, I'm a question asker, so this is my conversation style. Is I like to see also what's inside of people through conversation. The pressures we're talking about, the pressure right now. When the pressure, when the adversity, when the problems, when the failure, now there's no negative connotation on any of these things. But not if, but when these things show up in your life, how do you find yourself moving through the pressure?
For me, what I need to do is I need to sit with myself. I need to think about what's going on. But instead of thinking about running away or being fearful of whatever's going on, I turn to gratitude. I turn to setting intentions for the day. And you and I have talked about this before. I said, most people, if you give the story like this, it's Sunday evening, you're going to be starting Monday as a typical, let's say, work week. And you're thinking that everything's going to be chaotic and busy, and you're not going to have room to get anything done because a lot of times we put everything on starting on Mondays, right? So if you wake up thinking that and you're telling yourself that, the moment something may come by you like unexpectedly, maybe it's not something real positive, you're going to react instead of like moving through it. But if you say, and you start a routine for the day where I'm really grateful to be waking up on this sunny day. I'm really grateful that I had, a good meal, and I'm ready to go out and see how I can show up today. I just want to show up in a positive, grounded way. Tell yourself that, and believe me, you show up in a grounded way. You can be calm. Things can come at you that are like, most people will come to me because I'm a manager in the work that I do. The sky is falling. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, the sky is falling. The storm is here. Okay. And so what we'll do is we'll go into some dialogue to bring the person back down to calmness so that they're, breathing properly. And I'll ask them, what choice do we have here? What could we do? Where do you need help? And when you do that, it instantly takes things to a different level, and it's a learned skill. It's really easy to be in an environment where things all of a sudden are being thrown at you, and emotions are flying, and so it's like, okay, when you're in an environment where you've got to, keep the calm so that everyone else can be too, because storms spread. The stormy, turbulent pressures can spread really quickly. And when we can be in that center, that eye of the storm, that grounding presence, the most terrible thing to that person or persons you're with, all of a sudden isn't that terrible anymore, because we're thinking about, well, okay, well, this is not the greatest, but what can we do? What are our choices? Where can we go with this? And so I really enjoy showing people how to set intentions for the day, how to be thankful for what we have, and worry less about some of the chaos that's happening, because chaos is temporary. So, we can handle it, we can do it. There aren't too many things that you can't solve. It's usually not a life and death matter. And so we have to like move through things not thinking about it in that way. Think about, we're just gonna figure out logically what makes the most sense. We're gonna get in that mindset. We're gonna figure this out. And when we do that, it's peaceful. It's really peaceful, and people are pleasantly surprised when we do that together. Because I used to come from the other camp where the sky is falling, we're running around, it's chaotic, and pretty soon, no one can make good decisions about anything, and that's just is not the place to be. And so, learning that life skill of being able to find ways to ground yourself, whatever that is. I mean, different people do different things, and I think there's some things that other people do that I think it's great. Um, Personally, for me, that setting the intentions, that's the most powerful thing that I can do, along with maybe doing some breathing, or really going out with nature sometimes, just walking out barefoot out in the yard, just kind of taking in a few breaths. It works wonders.
I love how you talked about changing the narrative, changing your story. It's a
Yes.
very That's such a deep level of awareness. And for me, one of the things I do is to meditate,
Hmm.
to sit down with myself, which no one ever taught me that growing up. It was go make money, right? Like man up. You hear all these little things, right? And those were the things that taught me how to deal with myself.
Hmm.
And so now these days, reason I wanted to talk about pressure today is that pressure has created diamonds in my life.
Hmm.
right? Um, it helps me to keep the foot on the gas and not take the foot off the gas and go back to mediocrity and conformity. There's nothing there waiting for me. I already know what's there. For me, that's not where the prize is. And so the opportunity to be talked about, the pressure to have the real conversation makes my heart happy.
Yes. And I want more people to get happy about having the conversation when things are hard because it's just so much better. It's so much easier to move through it than to do all those other things. There's always going to be things coming our way. And when we can learn that life skill, because I would say that's not something that's taught either, but that can change beginning with us. Um, I'm a parent to three children, and I am always teaching them what to do when adverse moments happen. We've had adverse moments happen, and I show them some strategies and things that I do. And what's really nice is they won't be our age saying, I never learned that. No one ever showed me because I'm showing them because I know how important it is. And it's not because my parents didn't show me either. It's just one of those things where sometimes you got to be in the experience to be able to show it to another person. And so everyone's experiences are different. And so the advocacy work that we can do to show people what to do or what they could do in these stormy periods, it's so helpful. And that's what drives my work outside of what I do for a living professionally. Um, Helping people to move through their emotions, helping people to become more effective communicators. You do all those things, life all of a sudden becomes way easier no matter what happens.
I agree 100%. And I was talking with a family member today, leaving the Capitol building and getting ready for today's conversation with you. And it is only when we begin to get better that everything around us begins to get better, right? And that takes practice to show up with yourself. That winning isn't something we do some of the time, it's something we do all of the time. That I can win when my emotions feel like they're not in a good place, and I can win when my emotions are in a good place, right? I'm going to
Mhm.
show up with myself every single day, regardless of what kind of pressure is in my life. And I'm going to make a decision to choose myself in every one of these. Right now, I can show this to my family, right? That empathy and all these other things begin to change for me because I would show up and I would stay in that victim empathy with people. But now I'll stay there with them just long enough to acknowledge the situations, but not to move past them and to choose something different. Because I've become different. Now I have more to offer to everybody that comes across my path.
That is so true. That is so true. I'm really looking forward to the event that we're having on November 19th, 2022. And I'm just so excited that we get to do this work together. For men out there that are listening, for women such as myself that are advocates and supporters, we need each other. We need each other to learn how to move through these things, to learn how to communicate more effectively, because there are differences, but not all the differences are necessarily men versus women, women versus men. They are on an individual level. And I guess what excites me most about this event that we're having is you talked about it. You need to be able to build your resiliency through practice. Well, to practice, you have to know what you're going to practice. And so, with the speakers and presenters on our panel, we're going to be practicing different things in different modalities, and we're going to do it together so we can move further with each other. And so, that's what's really exciting. And what I'm going to do for everyone is I'm going to post the information to our event in the link. And if you have any questions at all about the event or how you can participate, how you could support us, then we'll go ahead and reach out to you and we'll provide that information.
Thank you, Linda, for, you said practice, right? Practice in these conversations, right? Like every opportunity you get to practice what's inside of us, to not push it down, but to let it out. So, my gratitude to you for allowing me to express myself and for us to have this conversation, because ultimately this was more self-knowledge for me today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And I know we'll stay in conversation. And we look forward to meeting everyone on November 19th.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.